My name is Dr Carmel Smart from the John Hunter Children's Hospital in Newcastle, Australia. I'm going to speak to you about managing difficult meals with the 670G. Evidence shows the impact of fat and protein can contribute to out-of-target blood glucose levels. As you can see from this slide, there is an initial drop after eating creamy pasta prior to a rise between 3 to 5 hours after the meal. In manual mode using 670G, there is the option to use a dual wave bolus. However, when using auto mode, a different strategy is needed. In auto mode, I would suggest to add 20 to 30% to the carb dose and then give 60% of this total dose before the meal and 40% at 1 hour. If you're eating a high protein, high fat meal without carbohydrate, such as steak and salad, give the equivalent of 15 grams of carbohydrate immediately before the meal and increase this based on the individual response. I'm now going to take you through how we would apply these strategies to Matthew. Matthew has recently started eating bacon and eggs for breakfast, and he has not been bolusing for these as there is no carbs at breakfast time. However, he's very frustrated by the glucose rise and associated alarms, and he's looking for some help. So what I would recommend is initially for Matthew to start bolusing for 15 grams of carbohydrate for the fat and the protein in the meal he's eating. For Matthew, he actually needed to take that up to 30 grams for the fat and the protein, and that really improved his postprandial profile. The auto mode was now able to work with Matthew to minimize his glucose excursions from this type of meal, and as a result, Matthew was really happy. So we're now going to consider different bolusing behaviours. Matthew has started to eat carbohydrate at breakfast time. However, because he forgot to give his bolus, he then found an initial high blood glucose rise. He then gave the bolus 30 minutes after the meal, but this resulted in a hypo 2 hours later, caused by a combination of late bolusing and also the auto mode increasing the basal amounts of insulin. So what to do in this situation? It's really important to routinely encourage pre-bolusing 10 to 15 minutes before the meal. However, if the person forgets and it's less than 1 hour since the meal, then enter half the amount of carbohydrates that's in that meal. If it's greater than 1 hour since the meal, enter the blood glucose level and do a correction bolus. Matthew now has moved on to having pizza for dinner and has done a pizza bolus at 7 o'clock and is about to eat one large meat lover's pizza. Unfortunately, his blood glucose level rises and it's necessary for him to wake up and do a correction bolus at 11:30 at night. So what strategy would you recommend here? The strategy that I would recommend is first to add a supplement for fat and protein, and that's 20% additional insulin to the carbohydrate dose. Then split that bolus 60% prior to eating and 40% at 1 to 1.5 hours. What that translates to for this meal is a bolus 15 minutes prior of 90 grams of carbohydrate, and then a bolus at 1.5 hours of 60 grams of carbohydrate. So the three key takeaways for Matthew are to make sure that he understands to bolus 15 minutes prior to the meal, add a supplement for fat and protein when he's eating very high fat, high protein meals, and to split that bolus 60% prior to eating and then 40% at 1 to 1.5 hours after eating the meal. So I'd just like to thank you very much for listening, and I hope that you find these strategies useful with the people with type 1 diabetes that you see.